And like Julie said, I am here with the Equity Collaborative, and I am here to teach you how to be an ally to LGBTQ youth in a variety of contexts, whether that's school, whether that's a friend of your child, whether that is your child. And so I hope that you can walk away feeling like you've learned something and absorbed something and can feel a little bit more confident talking about this topic with the people around you. I'm going to preface this by saying that I am a millennial and we communicate almost exclusively in memes. So don't act like it's not true. So there will be lots of them. I tried to screen them for vulgarity. If I missed one, I apologize. It happens. All right. So why am I here? I am a mother of 3 children. They are 9, 10, and 12. And when my daughter Jameson over here was 3.5 years old, she started saying, "Mommy, I'm a girl." "Mom, guess what? I'm a girl." "Mom, can we call Daddy and tell him I'm a girl?" And I was like, whatever, okay. And then I started doing some Googling, and I was like, holy crap, Google. My son says that he's a girl. What does that mean? And fortunately, in 2013, positive things came up, resources came up. And that got me thinking about how important it was to support my child in her identity and let her know that when I said, "you be yourself," that I actually meant that. And then, not long after that, my little one, Marie, also started saying things like, "Look, Mom, I'm a bracelet girl. Look, Mom, I'm a tutu girl," and was wearing all of Jameson's things. And 2 years later, transitioned on their 5th birthday to also being my daughter. And then 2 years after that, decided, I really don't feel like a boy or a girl. I'm non-binary. And so this is my child, Marie, and my daughter, Jameson, and they have taught me so freaking much about what it means to be a mom and what it means, like what unconditional love means. Because holy crap, that threw me for a loop. Holy crap. All right, so before we get started, I like to preface these things with some kind of guidelines, because this is a sensitive topic. We're all very new to learning about this. We're all coming from different backgrounds. Some of us know a lot, some of us know next to nothing. But this is a voluntary activity, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to know. So we're going to give each other a little bit of grace. So the first guideline is assume best intentions, but be mindful of your impact. I have a crap ton of slides with things that I think are important for you to know, but if there's something you're really, really wondering about and I don't get to it, please raise your hand. I am here for you to get the information that you need to feel confident and successful being able to talk about this. But also, if you have a question and something is offensive or the language has evolved and you didn't know, it's important to acknowledge, oh wow, that might be hurtful. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person, and we're all going to give you the benefit of the doubt. The next one is listen to understand. All of us, while the other people are talking, always have this inner dialogue going about what we think they're going to finish with, what we're going to say next, what else is going on in our lives. And this conversation can get really uncomfortable for people, and people want to step in right away and say, oh, I'm not a bad person, or oh, what about this? But I encourage you to just sit with what it is that you're hearing and just really let it sink in. The next one is speak up. Like I said, I'm here for you. If there's something that you need to get out of this and I haven't gotten there yet, let me know. The next one is don't be afraid to be wrong. This is a learning space. This is a safe space to say something that you feel like might be ridiculous or might be outdated or might just be silly. Go for it. We're here for you. And I bet you at least 3 other people have that same question or that same comment. The next one is get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. I never learned a single thing about the LGBTQ community when I was in school, even up through college. I had to bring it into the classroom. I had to be the one to say, okay, but how does that affect queer people? How does that affect my trans kids? It wasn't being talked about. And it's not our fault that we didn't get that education. And it's not our fault that it feels uncomfortable deconstructing all of their previous found notions and having to rebuild that back up. If you're feeling uncomfortable, good. You're learning something. The next one is be respectful. And that is a pretty broad term, but in general, just be a nice human, okay? I think we can handle that. I think we're good. The next one and last is what's said here stays here. What's learned here leaves here. My kids give me the permission to use their faces in their stories because they feel like it's a safe space, and that what you all learn from that can be hugely beneficial to the people in your lives. That being said, if you happen to be a parent whose child goes to school with mine, or you're out and you see us somewhere, keep their story to yourself. Don't share any information. But you can say, I heard about this trans kid who, XYZ, or I learned tonight that blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I want you to learn things and take them, or this is all a big waste of time. All right, so first things first. In order to talk about the rest of what I'm going to talk about, we're going to have to deconstruct some things so that y'all understand what I'm talking about moving forward. So we're going to go into the differences between sex, gender, gender expression, and sexual orientation. The first topic is sex. We all feel like that's pretty simple. You're XX, you're XY, you have a penis, you have a vulva, like it's cut and dry. You find that out at the ultrasound, right? No, you don't. So often the first question we ask pregnant people is, oh, is it a boy or a girl? Is it a boy or a girl? Is it a boy or a girl? Not realizing that, there are a lot more important questions to ask than what kind of genitals the infant has. And if you walked up to somebody and you're like, hey, what kind of junk does your kid have? That's creepy. People do that. But we feel like we need to know, and that those answers are going to come from just asking, is it a boy or a girl? And it's a lot more complicated than that. But that designation that happens at that ultrasound and when that baby comes out populates a whole host of legal documentation that doesn't necessarily accurately reflect who that person is. And it's a huge pain, and you know what, to go back and undo all of that. I'm not going to talk about that tonight, but just know that that's another thing that trans people have to deal with that really we shouldn't be making into such a big deal, and we should just give people the right to change those things and be who they are. It's more complex than XX and XY. It's not inherently binary. There are whole different sets of intersex conditions, and all of that's normal. Like, people just exist in a variety of ways, and that's cool. But we act like people are just male or you're female, and there's no in between. And that's not only damaging to trans people, it's really harmful to intersex people. And it can change through life. There is an island in the Dominican Republic where even children that get assigned female at birth, they don't give them a gender or a permanent name until they go through puberty, and they find out whether or not their testes distend. It's not immutable. It can change. Okay, so the next graphic is super overwhelming. You don't have to read it. I don't expect you to. I'm just going to outline a little bit of what I was just talking about. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I will walk you through. Okay, so this is factors that determine your sex, and this is where they show up in life, whether that is your chromosomes, your genes, your hormones, things that show up at conception, birth, and then at puberty. And this column here is your typical, what we would call biological female in the way that we talk about it right now. And then on the other side is your typical biological male. But all of these boxes are distinct manifestations of sex that don't lie in this tube or in that one. So when we say, oh, but what's your biological sex? What's their biological sex? Well, are you talking about their chromosomes? Are you talking about their anatomy? Are you talking about their inner reproductive organs? Like, what are you talking about? No one of these things is any more or less biological than another. And so that's from asking that question and trying to reduce somebody down to their biological sex. It's really tricky and harmful. All right, the next thing is gender. This is the way that a person sees themselves in relation to their body, what society expects of them. And again, we assume that if you're assigned male at birth, there's a nice blue path that you can walk down. Here's all of your stuff you're gonna need. Are you a stud muffin or a cupcake? Don't get me started on gender reveals, we will be here all night. But it's completely separate from your sex. It has nothing to do with what your body looks like, what your chromosomes say. It's just an innate sense of this is who I am, this is what feels comfortable to me, or not. And everybody does gender differently. I notice there's a lot of people in here who maybe share a gender who didn't show up in the same outfit, the same style of clothes. Some of you are wearing makeup, some of you aren't. Some of you got hats on, some of you aren't. And if you were assigned a female at birth, you have a lot more wiggle room within that assignment to show up in the world than if you were assigned male at birth. And that's super duper harmful because we just assume that gender means this thing. And if you step outside of that, then God be with you, because the world is a really cruel place. And they're not just harmful for kids like mine. They're harmful for all sorts of people. Like, nobody ever taught me how to change the oil in my car because it wasn't important, because I'm a girl and there would be a dude to do that for me. Like, I would also like some basic life skills, please. No? Is it my vulva? Oh, ridiculous. All right, and this is just an example. Again, these pictures came from the internet. People are really sick of straight people. I'm sorry, it's not an attack on you, it's just society got us all twisted up. Anyways, these are some onesies that I just pulled off the internet for fun. This one, chicks are all over me, for a little boy, and I'm not allowed to date ever for a little girl. Driving home the fact that girls' bodies are owned by their fathers, are owned by the men in their lives, but that from day one, we're asexualized. And B, can you imagine if I put my daughter in a onesie that said chicks are all over me, and what kind of agenda people would think that I was pushing by putting that on my little girl? Can you even imagine? It would be unforgivable. People would be on me all of the time. How dare you assume that kid's gender? How dare you assume that kid's gonna be a lesbian? What are you trying to do? But we can put that on little girls if we set up that they're gonna be into boys later. That and this, does this diaper make my butt look fat? What kind of message is that? What kind of message are we sending to little kids? Gender is harmful when it's held up so strictly that from infancy, our baby girls are supposed to worry about their body image? Like, I'm not understanding what you're getting out of that. And then these onesies over here for little boys. I need a woman that can handle my load. Excuse you? What? Inappropriate. Also, lock up your daughters. Like, what is your infant gonna do? Like, what? It just drives home the point that we force gender so hard, we force sexuality so hard, that it starts from before day one. And these are some maybe alternatives to doing that. Right? Hilarious. It's a dinosaur, duh. It's awesome. It's a person. Right? Skip it. Just skip the aggressive gendering. It's a dinosaur. It's a lion. It's a person. All right. So I get a lot of flack, and I have gotten a lot of flack the last several years because my kids came out when they were really young. My daughter, again, was 3 years old, and she was like, "Mom, I'm a girl." And I had all sorts of people telling me, "You can't make him into a girl, Jamie. Just because you wanted girls doesn't mean that you can make him into a girl. What's with all the rainbows, Jamie? That kid doesn't know what he's talking about, Jamie. Why don't you wait till he's 18? Well, A, because I want my kid to survive to be 18. We'll talk about how unlikely that is in a minute. But secondly, because gender identity, no matter what kind of kid you are, you're aware of it between 3 and 5 years old. And kids as young as 10 months can tell when you look at them when they do a behavior that you don't approve of. And that gets into their psyche and determines the way that they behave through even their toddlerhood. Like, that is wild. But kids are who they are between 3 and 5. If you ask a kid that question and you get the answer you were expecting, you're like, "Oh, good job, you know who you are." But if you ask that kid a question and you get the answer that you were not expecting, all of a sudden that kid doesn't know who they are. Their answer has nothing to do with us. We asked, they're answering, and they're not wrong. So there's 2 stages at which trans kids will tend to come out if they come out in their youth. And that first one is that 3 to 5 range, before the world has gotten to them too badly. The second is around puberty. And unfortunately, that comes with a lot of depression, anxiety, self-harm, substance abuse, because their body is going through this kind of like body mutiny, where they're like, whoa, what is happening right now? I didn't allow room in my mind to think that I was going to start my period, and now, holy crap, what is going on? Like, I didn't think I was going to grow hair there, and like, what is happening to my voice? Not great feelings for these kids. Not at all. And so that's why it's important to listen to them no matter how old they are. And then in between that range is when their sexual orientation comes into the equation. And it's not about sex for little kids. It's just about, like, when I play house, who do I imagine being there? Or when we like play pretend wedding, who do I think is going to be standing up there with me? Who do I want to play with? And you can also believe them when they tell you who they're into. My 9 and 10-year-olds are like, Mom, I'm pansexual. And I'm like, cool, you do you, Bill. Up until that point, I would have been like, you're too young, what do you mean? Or people think you have to go through puberty all of a sudden to know anything about yourself. Not necessarily true. All right, so here's some language that I may or may not have let out before it was time, but whatever. All right, so the prefix trans means across. Somebody who is trans does not identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth. Cis means on the same side as. It's a scientific term, and that means somebody who does identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth. I was assigned girl. I feel pretty good having a girlhood. I'm down with my bootylicious bod. I'm a cis woman, and that feels good to me. My kid, however, both of them were assigned male at birth, and that does not feel good to them. They are trans. Again, between 3 and 5, you know who you are. And also, just like sex isn't binary, gender isn't binary either. My youngest one is non-binary. There's a whole host of identities that people have had to come up with language for because there wasn't language to describe the way that they were feeling. And as an umbrella term, the term is non-binary. It's not like a monolithic third gender that's like, watch out, the non-binaries coming. There's a whole bunch of different identities that fall under that umbrella of not being a boy, not being a girl, not being a man, not being a woman. All right, separately from those two things, if it's not complicated enough yet, is expression. That's just how you show up in the world, how you want people to see you, how you want to portray yourself. Again, has nothing to do with your sex or your gender. Clothes don't have a gender. I don't know about you, but before I pick out my clothing, I don't hold it up and ask, are you a boy or a girl? That would be ridiculous. But we act like if you're a man or a little boy, then this is the area of clothing that you are allowed to look at. And if you're a little girl, here's the sequins, here's the pink, here's the glitter. Maybe you can venture a little bit into the boy section, but mostly things are separated by gender. And it actually has nothing to do with the way that you express yourself. Hair, makeup, clothes, shoes, behavior have nothing to do with what a person's gender is, or what a person's sexual orientation is, or what their sex is. It's all about expression. Who am I when I show up in the world? All right, next is sexual orientation. I'm going to read this cartoon real quick because the lettering is small. So this is from a cartoon called Assigned Male Comics by Sophie LaBelle. She writes comics in a way that makes this whole topic so relatable and make you think about things in a way that there's no way that you could have come up with that on yourself. She's amazing. So anyway, this is the girl. She is a trans girl, and this is her friend. But if you're a boy who dresses like a girl, aren't you? Ugh, I'm a girl. People mistook me for a boy when I was born, that's all. And I don't dress like a girl. That doesn't even mean anything. So if I thought, for example, that you were cute, that wouldn't make you gay? And she's obviously displeased and annoyed. I got her. Well, in the specific example, I guess not. But there's a lot to unpack here. And there is a lot. We're only a little bit in, and that's like a lot of information. It's just gonna keep rolling. It's okay. It's okay if you're confused. It's okay if you're overwhelmed. All right, so this is, again, who a person wants to have a relationship with. It's tied to the person's gender, not their sex assigned at birth. So if my daughter grows up and is exclusively attracted to men, that will make her a heterosexual woman, regardless of the body that she happens to have inhabited. Because her gender identity as woman is girl. And that is really important because we still have such a culture of homophobia that contributes to things like at least 24 trans women being murdered every year in the United States from their intimate partners. Either because they didn't disclose soon enough to their partner that they were transgender, or because their partner's friends or family found out and made them feel bad about it. And they made them feel bad about it because they were associating that with being gay, which is still such a stigmatized identity that now it's trickling into things that actually have nothing to do with that. And it causes violence, it causes depression, it causes homicide. Not ideal. So we as a society need to do a lot better unpacking that and teaching people that sexual orientation follows somebody's gender, which has nothing to do with what's in their pants. So again, those are all separate, and it's inherent to your identity. You can't make somebody queer. You can't make them gay. You can't make them not gay. So these, I took some of the ones that you might not have heard about. I'm guessing you all basically get what straight, gay, and lesbian mean, yeah? Okay. So these are a couple that are coming up more and more because people are learning that it's a spectrum and that maybe who a person is not as important as what their gender identity is. So the first one is pansexual. The buzz term for that is hearts, not parts. It doesn't matter what a person's expression is. It doesn't matter what their body looks like, what their gender is. Are you a good person? Can I see myself with you? Do you treat me fairly? It has nothing to do with any of those other things. Bisexual used to just be you're attracted to both men and women, which made sense before we realized that those are not the only options and that it isn't binary. So it's come to mean you're attracted to people both of your own gender and of other genders, not necessarily all genders and expressions. The next one is asexual, and those folks don't really experience any sexual attraction to anybody at all. That does not mean that they don't want to have a romantic relationship with somebody, that they'll never get married or they'll never have kids. That just means that sex really isn't the end-all be-all in that relationship. You used to have to go to the doctor. People make a really big deal. And now we're learning it's okay. If it's not causing you distress, it's okay to just not want to get any. All right, and the next one is queer, which has been reclaimed by the community. Not all folks in the community, depending on where you grew up, how it was used against you when you were younger. Younger generations don't have quite as long a history of that being used as a slur, so the reclamation tends to come from younger folks. But it can also be used to simplify a complicated identity. So instead of saying I'm pansexual, aromantic, non-binary, you could just say I'm queer. And that is a little loosey-goosey and it gives a wiggle room to your identity. And also if you don't have hyper-specific terms, it's really convenient to just throw a word out there that feels good to you. But a little note about this one, I wouldn't go using it in your everyday life. It's used for people, in general you want to reflect the language back to people that they use for themselves. You wouldn't yell it out a car window. You wouldn't be like, hey kid, go to school and call your gay friend queer, it's cool now. Don't do that. Just don't. And then demisexual is that you're not sexually attracted until and unless a deeper connection is formed with that person. And then I just really like this meme because it's hilarious. I blurred out the bad word. You can't just turn gay. It's not some werewolf crap like, oh no, the full moon is out. It's happening. I've become fabulous. It's not how it worked. It'd be kind of cool if it did, let's be honest, but it's not. All right, so these are pronouns. Mine, in case I forgot, sometimes I do, are she, her, and hers. So when you talk about me, that's what you would use when you're not using my name. And until I started doing this kind of work and my kid was who they were, hadn't really thought about pronouns since I was like diagramming sentences or whatever. So I just like to make sure that we've hammered out what a pronoun is, because I'm guessing that you'll find in more and more spaces when you introduce yourselves, your name and your pronoun will be something that you'll share. So it's good to know what that is. When people aren't using your name, how do you want them to talk about you? And this is just funny. If you didn't know that before, you are not alone. Hands down, the funniest thing I've ever heard at college was overhearing the following sentence at a conference. I asked him what his pronouns were, and he said, PhD? If you didn't know how to use a pronoun before and know how to explain it, you are not alone. There's people everywhere. It's not your fault. All right. So now that we've gone over all of that, what does that look like for trans kids? What does it look like to transition as a child? First of all, is a social transition. I went overboard buying a new wardrobe. Oh my Lord. She was so fun to shop for. Went a little overboard, but clothes. She grew out her hair. Her pronoun changed to she. I redid her room. Bought her a whole bunch of new toys. And even then, I was going off what I would expect a little girl to want, not necessarily what my daughter wanted. And my daughter was going off what other people would expect of her, also not what she wanted. She wouldn't wear blue for 9 months because people were gonna think that she was a boy. She couldn't play Power Rangers with her brother anymore because anytime she did anything rough and tumble, people would say, see, he's all boy, Jamie, I don't know what you're doing. Jameson, why are you wearing that dress? What's your mom doing to you? It's super damaging. So, none of those things are permanent. You can just backpedal on out of there if this kid decides, you know what, it was good exploring that, but maybe I'm not trans, or maybe I don't like these clothes. Fine, no harm, no foul. The medical piece comes in when children hit Tanner stage 2 of puberty. Not much is going on, it's right before the hormone burst. They can receive a hormone blocker that comes in a shot or an implant that looks like something like Nexplanon. It's also completely reversible. It just puts a pause button on puberty so that hair doesn't grow out of their face. This trans boy doesn't start a period. It gives these kids and their families more time to know what step it is that they want to take next. And if they decide, you know what, transitioning with hormones isn't right for me, you just pop out that blocker and their endogenous puberty will continue and pick up right where it left off. But that kid knows that they were supported, that they had the time to think about what it is that they wanted to do with their body and their life before their body and nature decided for them. And then for kids that do want to go on to transition, it gives them the benefit of having to not go through later surgery. Like, for instance, the most common sought after surgery for trans women is a tracheal shave, which reduces the appearance of an Adam's apple. Can you even imagine going in and having somebody shave things out of your throat? Or open up your face and literally chip the bone away so that your face looks more feminine, so that people won't harass you or murder you, so that you can like the person that you see in the mirror? If we can prevent that, we should be doing that. Let's see. Also, another meme, surprise. Welcome to Earth, kid. First gender's free, but after that you gotta pay. And it's just, maybe it's an inside joke, but like, you only went through one puberty a week. Along those lines, trans kids don't have surgery. Nobody is pumping them full of hormones and inverting their penises and making them be people they don't want to be. You know, who is having surgery on their genitals is intersex babies. Because we are so uncomfortable with the in-between that we make people pick one. Or we don't give them an option. We don't even tell them their baby was intersex. We don't even tell that person they're intersex until they go for a checkup later in life and things aren't where they should be. Or their medical file is unsealed and they're finding out from this physician that a doctor or their parents made that decision for them years ago and never told them about it. It's not okay. Yeah.
Sorry, what is intersex?
Intersex is what happens when a part of your sexual development doesn't fall neatly into one category or the other. And that can happen, while I'm talking about this, don't ever use the word hermaphrodite. The term is intersex. It can happen where it's visually ambiguous genitalia, or somebody who seems to have female genitalia but has undescended testes. Or those kids in the Dominican Republic where their testicles don't appear until puberty, and you have no idea which kids are intersex and which kids aren't until that phase. So it's just some condition of your sexual development that doesn't line up with just what we expect from boys and what we expect from girls. Whoa. Okay, hold on. I got a little carried away. What happened here? Okay, we got it. It's fine. Okay, this is a really powerful quote that I wanted to share that also happens to be a meme, so that's a twofer. Queer people don't grow up as ourselves. We grow up playing a version of ourselves that sacrifices authenticity to minimize humiliation and prejudice. The massive task of our adult lives is to unpick which parts of ourselves are truly us and which parts we created to protect us. I didn't have to grow up like that. I got to be who I was. It's heartbreaking that kids don't get the opportunity to do that. Or think about your high school and all of the kids that came out once you graduated. It's not a coincidence that there was a massive influx of people that came out after they graduated and moved out of here. And so our mission, and the reason why I do this, is so that kids who grew up in this community feel like there's a place for them here. That they don't have to grow up and move away because they can't be who they are here. This is a beautiful place. People come here from all over the world. You'd think that the locals would want to stay, but they don't. And it's not because Bend isn't amazing. It's because they don't see themselves reflected here, valued here, honored here, wanted here. All right, here's some facts. Not gonna lie, they're pretty bummer, but it's important to know why this is so important and what the effects of not doing this are. All right, so I'm gonna start with this one because it's the worst, and we'll just get it out of the way. The adult transgender community has a suicide attempt rate of 41% of just people that are 18 and over, and that's between 6 and 8 times the national average for just a person. And it's not because trans people are broken, it's because the world treats trans people like they don't belong and they aren't valued, and it doesn't respect their identity. And kids are not immune. Over half of trans male teens have attempted suicide. That's kids who were assigned female at birth but identify as boys. A third of trans female teens, that's kids who were assigned male at birth but identify as female. And then 42% of non-binary kids who don't have a binary identity and might never, and that's okay, except that the world doesn't treat them like they're authentic and like they matter and like they know who they are. And part of transitioning as a child, say for my kids, they get a hormone blocker, they'll never produce sperm, they'll never have biological children. Because in order to get that part or that far through puberty, a lot of other things happen first that aren't worth putting my kids through that distress of having a beard grow and their voice change and getting taller and having their jaw square out like their dad's. Just because I want grandkids, or like maybe in 20 years they'll want to have a family. So this is Hoda interviewing this Dr. Jolison Kennedy, and she is the #1 doctor when it comes to trans kids. So Hoda tells her what seems ridiculous to have a trans kid at 12, 13, 14 deciding whether they want to have children when they're 20, 30, or 40. And the only answer that makes sense to that is, well, they're killing themselves at 12 and 13. That's a lot more permanent. That's a lot bigger deal than not having biological children. But if you use the name that a trans person would like to go by, their chosen name, that reduces their suicide risk